Welcome to the Darwinian Delusions channel. One of the aims of this channel is to give conceptual tools to the viewers so they can decide for themselves why Darwinian evolution is speculative. And one of these conceptual tools we get from the philosophy of science, which is that the same observations can give rise to multiple theories, multiple inferences. Now, even ardent Darwinists like Richard Dawkins, he gives the example of working out the history of life, kind of like the game of Cluedo, where you have, a murder that's taken place, you have certain evidences, this eyewitness account, that particular blood stain, the murder weapon being here, and then you try and work out, okay, what actually happened, who killed who, and how did they actually do it. Now, obviously, the difference is the characters are not, 20 or 30. We're speaking about, something that happened 4 billion years ago approximately, and 99.999% of species are unobserved. So whatever you try and come up with, it's like Cluedo on steroids. It's a lot more difficult. Now, whatever you try and speculate about that, this particular thing, it led to this, and then this may have happened. Okay, that's fine. But we need to keep in mind that there's a difference between what could have happened and what did happen. Because logically, we could come up with a scenario which is a very clear Darwinian scenario of the tree of life. And somebody else can sort of come up with a Lamarckian, multiple origins, parallel lines of evolution in a sort of bush or a sort of hedge. And somebody else can come along and say, life started 4 billion years ago, then it started again 3 billion years ago, and then, rather than one origin, there's 17 origins or 25 origins or 1,000 origins, whatever. So you can always come up with these multiple inferences based upon the same observations. And also what's interesting is sometimes some of the most fundamental ideas that we think are so clear-cut and so true, and they're not going to change, they can be challenged by new observations. And one of these assumptions of neo-Darwinism is that genetic material is only passed from parent to offspring, and it's just a vertical descent. But we've recently discovered the process of lateral gene transfer, also known as horizontal gene transfer. And one of the studies, and I found this study really interesting, is that 25% of the genetic material of the genome of the cow is actually from snakes. Now, initially, and I've had a few sort of discussions with Darwinists about this, and it's sort of, especially in Speaker's Corner, there's a video on the London Darwin Movement channel where I ask a guy, I say to him, okay, there's 25% of this DNA in and he didn't obviously know about horizontal gene transfer. I said, there's this 25% DNA in a cow, right, which is identical to the DNA of snakes. Where did that come from? Because I wanted his inference. And he said, common descent. They must have had a recent common ancestor. And then I mentioned to him, actually, according to scientists in a study, that it's actually due to lateral gene transfer. It was, jumping genes. And, his expression was, he didn't believe it. He didn't believe me. He thought this, I was just making this study up. But it just goes to show that not only is it true that the same observations can give rise to multiple theories, multiple inferences, even those ideas that we sometimes think are unchangeable, and we think that these ideas are not going to change, they can be challenged by new evidence, novel observations, and even sometimes novel processes that we thought were just impossible. So I hope you've learned from this episode that the same observations can give rise to multiple theories. And to find out why Darwinian evolution is speculative, make sure you subscribe, and also understand that whenever you hear a claim, always find out what the assumptions are behind that claim and what are the other possible scenarios that can be used to explain that particular phenomena. Thank you very much for listening.